Well, guys, we are back for another episode of the Liberal Asshole Show, episode 89. And what are today's topics?
Hockey player dies in game. We need heat pumps to combat climate change. Pope Francis is pro-trans. Bernie Sanders preventing Brawl. 2023 midterm results. Matt Walsh is stubborn. Russo-Ukraine war update.
Alright, so what do you want to talk about first?
Let's start with get the hockey player stuff out of the way.
Yeah, this is unfortunate. This happened a few weeks ago, and it did not happen in the NHL, the National Hockey League. This actually happened in a UK league. So, anyways, I have the article I'm listed up. This was back in October. I think this even happened before last week's episode, and I wanted to add on, but I forgot about it. It wasn't until afterwards I remembered to add on. So, anyways, during this I'll read the article. Police in South Yorkshire, England, said they made an arrest in connection with the death of Adam Johnson, a professional hockey player who died last month after his neck was slashed by the blade of a skater during a game, which has happened before in the NHL. Chuck Malarchuk back in 1989 when he was a goalie, that was like the most worst example, but hey, he at least survived. The man, who authorities have not named, was charged with suspicion of manslaughter and was released on bail. Our investigation continues and will provide further updates as to when we can. Yeah, because there's actually like a debate among people if it was done on purpose instead of like accidental, like Chuck happened back in '89 and such. Because have you ever watched NHL games?
Not really.
Just like in NFL, oh boy, they do get.
I'm mostly the Australian Football League, a little bit of football, and then I'm mostly motorsport, mainly supercars, NASCAR, and Formula One.
But yeah, like, because I don't know if you noticed, but in the NHL they actually allow fights. Do you know that?
Ah.
Whereas in NFL, if you do a swing, you get ejected from the game. But in NHL, they outright allow fights and all that.
Ah.
So, because of that, and of course, since a lot of NHL players travel overseas during the off-season from leagues and all that, some wonder if this was done on purpose, which has happened before. Remember, there's been so many times in the NHL where players straight up on purpose hit each other with the hockey stick and all that into the heads and all that. or slam each other into the
I've seen a few of those in compilations.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, you deserve like either a retaliatory hit or to be like absolutely slammed into the side of the wall and then piled on.
Well, I mean, that does happen in the NHL. They really get retaliatory very quickly and all that. So, yeah. Hockey is, of course, like, I think I talked about this before, like, people cry about, like, NFL's a violent sport. No, hockey's way more violent. Imagine all the violent hits, like in the NFL, but it's allowed, and imagine doing it on ice when you're going, like, 30-plus miles an hour at top speeds at times and stuff like that.
And don't forget that it was my joke in The Wizard of Id. So how'd you find your first hockey game? They take too much out of it for the fans. They take time out of killing each other to watch the commercials. Something like that.
I went to go watch a fighting game, but I ended up seeing hockey, as another joke goes. But yeah, so I saw the video. I'm not going to post it here because I don't have it, and it would probably be too graphic and all that. But yeah, if I remember correctly, I saw it one time. The guy who, slashed his neck, I guess you could say, was like flipped into the air as it was happening, and the way it looked when he actually connected, it's up in the air if it was intentional or not. Like, it's not completely clear if it was an accident or not, or something like that. So yeah, this is at least the third time that I know of in hockey that a player had their neck cut by the blades and all that. And unfortunately, this is the first time someone died and all that, which is very unfortunate. And of course, as I've been saying for years now, why do they not have, like, neck guards and stuff like that, like goalies? Like, have you seen the equipment goalies wear?
Yes.
They're completely covered up, pretty much. The regular hockey players, all they wear is helmets, for crying out loud, and a visor.
I'll give you a story from the cricket when after Philip Hughes died, when he got clobbered in the neck. I suspect he was actually he got plopped in the head by a cricket ball and just dropped and then died a couple of days later. Now there's special neck guards attached to the bottom of the helmets to protect against those sort of things. And in motorsport, after Dale Earnhardt Sr. died,
Yep, the
they mandated a head and neck restraint.
Yep.
It's again attached to the helmet and
hold them in place and all that.
Side neck actions.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, although they've had a couple of close calls, NASCAR's had no fatalities in the last 22 years.
Yep. But yeah, so yeah, this is not like a new thing that just happened out of nowhere. This has happened before in the NHL, where players got their necks cut by the skates blades and all that, and yet they don't have like a neck guard or something like that to keep them safe, which is ridiculous. Like, this should be like so obvious. Even if it's so rare, even if it's very rare, like at least 3 times I know of in 34 years or so, it's almost enough to kill you, so let's try to avoid it at all costs. Especially when they're going, high speed, physical contact and all that, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And there is neck braces or stuff like that they can wear. I actually looked up an article, which I have listed right here, where a minor, like a kids league, actually did wear a neck brace and got a skate to his neck, and he survived. As you see right here. Eastern Ontario youth hockey players saved by neck guard. So, they exist. I don't understand why maybe they don't wear, I don't know, like the helmets that the goalies wear, which like cover like their entire face and stuff like that. That way we don't have to worry about the blades hitting their necks and all that. But I guess it's just me, and I'm probably, and since I'm federal hockey, I guess I'm too ignorant to know. So yeah, we gotta see about this unfortunate incident. And of course, NHL neck braces now!
Mm-hmm.
Like, fucking stupid. And of course, I've read parts in a different article. Here we go. The Panthers called Johnson's death a freak accident. The tragedy promoted the English Hockey League Association, a sports governing body in the country, to make neck guards mandatory starting in 2024. Yeah, some leagues actually have it required, but I think after that it's voluntary. Like, the NHL does not have it required for non-goalies, which, after this, you need to make that a rule immediately. We don't need players dying because of crap. Because apparently I found it was only a few decades ago where they're actually required to start wearing helmets now.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. You think concussions are bad in the NFL? Try it on hockey when you're going 30 miles an hour and slid on the ice and all that. And then when they slam you into the glass boards and all that, like, come on. Absolutely obvious they need to wear this equipment. And it's going to be done soon before someone else dies. Absolutely pathetic. Alright, so, sucks for you that you died, and if it was intentional, I'm sure you'll face charges, which, that's actually happens in hockey, unlike other sports leagues, they actually do face charges.
So I'm guessing that CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, is a problem in hockey, because it is in motorsport.
What's concussions?
It is in AFL, so I assume it would be an issue there.
What, concussions?
Oh, no, this is this is a degenerative disease from repeated concussions over a lifetime.
Yeah, like the consequence of a lot of concussions. Yeah, that's in the NFL a lot. I'm sure it's hockey a lot too, since they have to hit high speeds.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the MLB a lot, since there's been many times I've seen on MLB highlights videos where the baseball hits players in the face and all that and stuff like that. Probably the only place it doesn't happen much is NBA, but they mostly probably get like leg injuries and stuff. But yeah,
that would be mostly leg. Yeah,
CTE. That's so. We talked about this before with NFL concussions. So many NFL players died like in their 40s and 50s because of that crap.
Yeah, and now we've got that in starting to get that in motorsport as well. There's been a few times that's happened in NASCAR. We're probably going to start seeing a couple. Have it. I think one of the older guys in supercars is starting to show signs of it as well.
Surprisingly, haven't heard any of this like in Monster Jam or Monster Trucks, because that's right, because they're like really bolted down to their seats big time when they're driving. Because like back when they started, like in the 80s and 90s, they would get like major whiplashes to the neck, hit the heads on the roof and all that. So that was much more common. But now they're like really strapped into where points drivers say a lot of times when they make a big jump and land, they don't even feel it. So yeah. Very unfortunate, and hopefully they get this resolved very soon. NHL, I'm looking at you. I better see a rule very soon that you're going to require neck braces for all players, not just goalies. Don't let this happen again, you understand me? So yeah, very unfortunate. Hopefully this gets resolved soon. Alright, so I guess on to the next topic.
And that would be... Where are we? Heat pumps to combat climate change.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this guy before. He's a really awesome YouTuber that talks about climate change, and he did this awesome video as I'm trying to find it. Why aren't we all using heat pumps? He had one of his buddies do the video instead. And this was a pretty good something we could do right now to maybe combat climate change and all that. It was actually very interesting to watch it. So yeah, let's get to watching it.
Hi, Michael here from the climate YouTube channel Distill. I'm taking over for Simon while he's on paternity leave. I'm also here to tell you about what I think might just be the most overlooked climate solution in the world. Now, when we typically think of climate solutions, I think most of us think of one of two categories. First, we obviously think of the popular stuff, like solar panels and wind turbines and electric vehicles. And this makes sense, given the amount of news coverage these solutions receive and the large role they'll play in decarbonization. And then people also think of the futuristic cool stuff. You might think of room temperature superconductors that could pave the way for efficient, high-speed rail networks all around the world, or maybe you think of fusion power plants that could provide cheap, abundant clean energy for all. Or maybe you think of direct air capture plants that could suck gigatons of carbon out of the sky. Come to think of it, I guess all the futuristic stuff is also the most controversial. Anyway, what we generally don't think of are the boring but incredibly important solutions that we need to decarbonize our society. In some cases, these solutions are already all around us. Think LED light bulbs, which are dramatically more efficient than incandescent bulbs.
You think all the stuff you said was
cases,
controversial? Oh my god, you should see conservatives and libertarians have a meltdown about mandatory those light bulbs for like the last 15 years. Oh my god. Remember Sam C had to deal with those idiots? Even something simple as newer light bulbs apparently is a big deal.
They're nascent.
Yeah,
like zero emissions
remember things as simple as seat belts, or even like any form of safety is problematic to all of them, which is...
My freedom to die like an idiot. Man.
In this video, I want to convince you that one of these boring climate solutions...
remember, I don't call them libertarians, they're Lolbertarians.
...is actually really cool and incredibly exciting. I want to make the case...
Pretty much all the libertarians that we knew of in 2016 through 2018, basically every single one of them is either a leftist or a Nazi. There is no in between.
...that if we want to avoid a climate catastrophe, we should all pay a little bit more attention to the humble heat pump. At an individual level, a heat pump powered by renewable electricity can cut a person's carbon footprint by more than 50%. Globally, this...
By more than 50% reduction. Because guys, like this would be really potent in America, because Americans, I think it was, because we covered before, I think it was every year Americans on average produce 5 tons of CO2. So imagine cutting that down for half for all Americans. That would probably knock a couple percentage off of the total CO2 emissions each year, which is always a good thing.
Technology can reduce billions of tons of emissions each year, all while saving people money on their utility bill. And they can do all of this while providing air conditioning in a rapidly warming world, literally saving lives. But before looking at all these benefits in more detail and how these things work, we have to look at how our current way of heating and cooling buildings got us into such a mess in the first place. For the vast majority of history, people were either too hot or too cold most of the time. But humans are a clever bunch, so we eventually figured out how to solve this problem. We invented fireplaces, furnaces, and eventually air conditioning. Now this was great for living standards. You're probably sitting in an air-conditioned or heated room right now as a result of these inventions. But the problem is that space heating and cooling takes a massive amount of energy. And today, most of that energy is powered by fossil fuels. According to the International Energy Agency, buildings are responsible for 30% of all energy use. Globally, the energy used in buildings is responsible for 26% of energy-related emissions.
And that is something that we could probably easily cut back on.
And heating and cooling alone are responsible for 40% of those emissions. That means that heating and cooling buildings is responsible for 10% of all emissions globally.
That thought going to be a lot higher than that. Well, it's going to go up higher because climate change is going to make the world hotter, so people are going to use air conditioners a lot more. But yet that 10% we could lower.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding you. In Australia, Friday before last, this is November, early November. We're like 6 weeks out of winter. And we had a 40-degree day.
But of course, that would be over 90 degrees in American terms.
Over 100.
Yep.
100 degrees Fahrenheit's 38 Celsius. So this is about 102, 103.
So like near the end of... Oh, that's right. Like 2/3 into spring now for you.
Yep.
Yep. Hey, just like I said, this heat wave of 2010, I kid you not, from like April to middle of September, like every day was 90 or more, and almost all of June was 100 plus every day.
That's as much pollution as all passenger vehicles in the world. In order to reduce these emissions,
that'll be January or February for Australia.
We need to do
every
two
day
things.
100
First,
plus,
we need
days 120 or greater.
to make all buildings way more efficient. The reality is that today, most buildings just waste a ton of energy. We can improve efficiency by adding insulation, upgrading windows, and installing smart thermostats, to name just a few opportunities. But even if we dramatically improved energy efficiency in buildings, that wouldn't be enough. We'd still be burning huge amounts of fossil fuels each year, resulting in far too much carbon pollution. So we also need to swap out all fossil fuel appliances with electric alternatives. Now by this point, I'm sure that somebody's already paused the video to write me a comment and let me know that electricity is produced using fossil fuels. And generally speaking, that's true.
I swear it
today,
has like the stupidest thing I can ever think of.
As you can see in this graphic, there's a huge
stuff.
variance in the emissions intensity of electric grids around the world.
Yes, electricity is produced by fossil fuels. We could still get everything electric by as much as possible because electricity itself is clean. We just got to eventually soon make stuff that doesn't make clean energy sources for electricity. Like, oh my god, like when people bring up like electric cars and all that like shit on them. Electric cars, yes, produce more CO2 to make up front, but over time, they produce way less CO2 than gas cars. Why?
And
Because
don't forget that we can now recycle I think all bar one compound in the batteries now.
Yeah.
There's like one compound left. We're still trying to figure out a way to recycle. All the rest we can.
Or like when people bring up like, ugh, why do electricity when still use fossil fuels? Like if we have like a clean energy power plant that produces electricity, that is better than a fossil fuel one. It just would be better. Like, come on, this is like stupid.
The world. Some countries like Norway and France run on much cleaner fuels than others. These countries show that it's possible to build clean and reliable electric grids. If we can electrify everything and then build clean grids all around the world, we can cut most building emissions. And this is where heat pump.
That, like, getting that 10% down would be massive, guys. That even 10% would be massive.
In. At the simplest level, a heat pump is an appliance that can both heat and cool a building. It's like an air conditioner that you can flip into reverse.
And as I'm sure he's going to get to it in a minute, but heat pumps I found out has been around in some form, since the 1800s, I think. Like, this is not like a new tech or anything that we don't know. This has been around for a while, and the way they work is unbelievable.
If you want to heat your room. But unlike a fossil fuel furnace or boiler, heat pumps run on electricity. This means that they can eventually be powered by renewable energy. The fact that heat pumps can also provide air conditioning is a huge benefit. Today, billions of people living in warm climates don't have access to air conditioning. The third major benefit of this technology is efficiency. Fossil fuel furnaces and boilers typically run at 90 to 95% efficiency, which might sound pretty good. That means that they waste just 5 to 10% of their energy. But heat pumps are 300 to 400% efficient, which means that
300 to 400% more efficient. That's incredible. So they require a lot less energy to, produce a lot more output.
When you put 1 unit of energy in, you get more than 1 unit of energy out. To understand how heat pumps achieve this efficiency, let's take a look at how these things work. One of the key things to understand about heat pumps is that they move heat rather than generate it. In cooling mode, a heat pump moves heat from inside your home to the outside air, leaving it cooler. Refrigerators and air conditioners do the same thing. That's why if you put your hand behind a refrigerator or next to the outside unit of an air conditioner, you'll feel hot air. This is heat that's been moved from one place to another. But what makes a heat pump different than a traditional air conditioner is that this process can be reversed. On a cold day, a heat pump can move heat from the outside air into your home. And that's kind of crazy because modern heat pumps work down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 30 Celsius. So how is this possible? The second law of thermodynamics tells us that hot always wants to move to cold. It also tells us that the ultimate fate of the universe is heat death. But that's beside the point. Heat pumps take advantage of this law. To simplify things a bit, heat pumps have both an inside and outside unit. connected by tubes with a refrigerant inside. In cooling mode, a heat pump uses the refrigeration cycle to get a refrigerant really cold and pass it through coils in the inside unit. Then, a fan blows the warm air in your room over those cold coils. Because the inside air is warmer than the coils, some of the heat moves to the coils and the refrigerant. In this way, heat is pumped out of the building, leaving the inside air cooler. In the winter, this whole process is reversed and heat is pumped from the outside air into your home. At first, this is a little hard to wrap your head around. If it's 10 degrees outside, how is there any heat to pump into the building? But here's the thing, even on a cold day, there's energy in the air. At a microscopic level, heat is basically just molecules bouncing around. And while they might be bouncing around slower on a cold day, they're still moving about. In fact, there would be energy in the air all the way down to negative 459 Fahrenheit,
which
or
is
negative
absolute
273
zero
Celsius, the temperature known as absolute.
Yeah, guys, like if it's like 0 degrees or negative 0 outside, that's not the absolute zero temperature. There's still heat out there. The absolute zero temperature is negative 459 degrees. So yeah, even on a very cold day, as long as, I think it was, he said, as long as it's not below minus 20 degrees, heat pumps will efficiently work to make your house warm in the winter.
Zero. Heat pumps take advantage of this too. On a cold day, the refrigerant is cooled to a temperature even colder than the surrounding air, enabling it to absorb heat as it passes through the outside unit. When it passes through the inside unit, the heat is released since the refrigerant is warmer than the inside air. And it turns out this is an incredibly efficient way to move heat from one place to another. By using just a small amount of electricity, heat pumps can use just 1 unit of energy to move 3 or 4 units of energy. And this is what makes them so efficient. So why aren't we using these things to heat and cool our buildings? Ultimately, it comes down to cost, but not necessarily in ways you might expect. In 1938, on the eve of World War II, Swiss engineers installed Europe's first heat pump in Zurich City Hall. The next year, as the war began, Germany cut off coal exports to Switzerland, driving heat pump adoption. A decade later, coal shortages led the UK to explore heat pumps for the first time too. In the 1950s, Parliament discussed heat pumps as a potential solution to the country's falling coal stocks. But the heat pump market didn't truly take off until the oil crises of the 1970s. As OPEC cut off oil exports to America and European countries, policymakers looked for ways to save energy. And they found a great solution in heat pumps. During the crisis, governments around the world passed policies pushing heat pump adoption. In the US, heat pump sales grew by 500% in the 1970s, from 100,000 units sold per year to 500,000. But by the 1980s, energy prices all around the world had fallen. And as a result, gas furnaces and boilers have been the cheapest heating option for the last few decades. However, some countries continued to invest in energy efficiency even as energy prices fell. In Japan, a country with almost no fossil fuel reserves, the government continued to invest in heat pumps. Today, 90% of homes in the country have a heat pump. Recently, Europe entered a new era of energy scarcity as Russia invaded Ukraine. As energy prices skyrocketed, so did heat pump sales. In some countries like Poland and Belgium, heat pump sales doubled in a single year. In other countries like the UK, France, and Germany, sales grew by 40 to 60%. And so the first reason why we don't use heat pumps more is because, generally speaking, fossil fuels are cheap and abundant. But when we look at the cost of anything, we can't just look at the monetary price. One reason that fossil fuels and the appliances that run on them are so cheap is because we overlook the true costs they impose on society. And this is the second reason why heat pumps aren't more popular. Fossil fuel heating systems create a lot of pollution. And this pollution creates an enormous cost on society. Poor air quality results in worse productivity, hospitalization, and millions of deaths each year. And that's just the short-term impact. Over the longer term, this pollution results in climate damage that's measured in billions and trillions of dollars. Some countries recognize this sooner than others. In the 1990s, Sweden passed a carbon tax to put a price on pollution. This tax has been one of the major drivers of heat pump adoption in the country. Today, 40% of homes in Sweden have a heat pump, the third largest share in Europe. So why don't more countries have carbon taxes like Sweden? After all, if they did, we'd have more heat pumps and less pollution. This brings me to the third reason why heat pumps aren't more popular: the global fossil fuel lobby. In 2022, fossil fuel companies received a staggering $1 trillion in subsidies from governments around the world. In many countries...
And yes, and he's not wrong, guys. The fossil fuel industry around the world usually gets up to like almost $1 trillion in government subsidies to try and make it as cheap as possible. Now, if we remove those subsidies and put it to green energy, they will become cheaper, which, by the way, is almost becoming the case now in a lot of ways. So, yeah, that's why fossil fuel is so cheap, because of government subsidies.
Like mine, these companies have effectively bought the government. This makes their product artificially cheap, but it also enables them to fend off competitors like heat pumps. A few years ago, cities in the US like Berkeley, California, passed laws banning fossil fuel heating systems, citing their carbon pollution and damage. The city wanted homeowners to install heat pumps instead. Fearing a broader trend, fossil fuel companies convinced lawmakers in 23 out of 50 states to ban these bans, a political tactic known as preemption. This is one of the most direct attempts by the industry to slow heat pump adoption. But it's not the first. For decades, gas companies have been spreading misinformation about heat pumps. If you've ever heard that heat pumps don't work in cold climates, you can probably thank your local gas company. These companies have even paid TikTok influencers to spread this myth. But make no mistake, today's heat pumps work down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 30 degrees Celsius. Just ask Scandinavians in Norway, Finland, and Sweden, the 3 countries in Europe with the most heat pumps per capita. Another myth the fossil fuel lobby has spread is that the electric grid can't handle heat pumps. There are plenty of countries with both high penetration of heat pumps and renewable energy. Norway, the country with the most heat pumps per capita in Europe, also has the cleanest grid. I'll link to a great mythbuster by Rewiring America with more on this topic below. Today, just 10% of global space heating needs are met by heat pumps. In order to avoid a climate disaster, we need to bring this number closer to 100% over the next few decades. It's a daunting task. But with action from people like me and you, it's absolutely possible. The easiest thing that we can all do is talk about heat pumps with our friends and family. Today, most people simply don't know that this technology exists.
Like
we need
I
to change
did.
that. The second thing we can all do is get politically active. The only way we'll get our governments to take on the fossil fuel lobby is by electing climate leaders and then holding them accountable. Finally, the next time your furnace or air conditioner goes out, consider installing a heat pump. In many places, your local government will give you thousands of dollars in rebates to do so. Unlike many climate solutions, the technology for heat pumps has been developed and tested for decades. Now, it's up to all of us to get this technology out in the world. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn—
So yeah, awesome video. So what do you have to say about that? Heat pumps are needed so badly.
Yeah. Well, we've got reverse cycle air conditioner at home, which helps us out. That one can do heat and cold. It's kind of fun because we've actually got because at the moment in spring we can have really hot days but also really cold nights. So
That's desert climate for you.
Cold, and then it's like 25 to 28 degrees.
Yep, desert climate.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely need to get heat pumps everywhere as soon as possible. Because that 10%, like, if we can get that 10% down, because that 10% of CO2 emissions from house heating and stuff like that, that could be really low. I mean, we can lower that down to almost zero, which would have major help in combating climate change. Getting 10% going like that is so needed. All right, so now on to the next topic, I guess.
Topic 3 is... Wait, Pope Francis is pro-trans?
Yep. This is I find hard to believe too, but of course, as always, Kyle covered it. As the title is, The Pope Welcomes Trans People into Catholic Church. Huh? What? Pope Francis actually being perhaps based again? Well, let's check this out then.
So, many people have pointed out that this new pope is relatively progressive compared to other popes. And we have yet another example of it right here. So CBS is reporting that the Vatican says transgender people can be baptized and become godparents now. But of course, there's caveats, because you're never going to have the Catholic Church or religious institution unequivocally do something that's positive. There's always going to be a but or a by the way.
Well, they're all,
the Vatican announced
everyone in the Catholic Church is
Wednesday that transgender people can be baptized and become godparents under certain conditions, as well as serve as witnesses to church weddings. The statement, which was written in Portuguese, was made in response to a Brazilian bishop who asked the Vatican about the church's stance on transgender people within its congregations. The Vatican's document stated that transgender people, including those who have received hormone replacement therapy or sex reassignment surgery, can be baptized under the same conditions as other believers, but only if there is no risk of generating a public scandal or disorientation among the faithful. But the document did not clarify
a good
what
chunk
a public scandal would
will probably
entail.
have a meltdown.
Yeah, I don't know
over,
what that
unfortunately.
means. Does that mean that if it's a trans person who's
because
been involved in
they're indoctrinated to be evil,
controversy and said un-Catholic things, that they're not allowed to become, or is it that if there's enough backlash from other Catholics in the area that then it's not allowed? I literally don't know what they mean. Additionally, the statement allows for transgender children and adolescents to be baptized as well. That's way more progressive than I would have expected. And added that there is no reason why transgender people cannot serve as witness at weddings. The document also specifies that a same-sex couple would be able to baptize a child who had been adopted or born via surrogate, providing there is a well-founded hope that he or she will be educated in the Catholic religion. The Vatican's affirmation that transgender people should be welcome in the Church's sacramental life signals Pope Francis' desire for a pastorally focused approach to LGBTQ issues is taking hold. Francis Di Bernardo, executive director at New Ways Ministry, a Catholic outreach that aims to build bridges between the Catholic Church and the LGBTQ community, wrote in an editorial Thursday, "As for whether transgender people can be godparents, the Church was again vague, saying it would allow transgender people to fill these roles, again provided there was no danger of what it termed a scandal. The Church said it leaves the decision up to pastoral prudence, but without providing specifics, clarifying that such a function does not constitute a right in the eyes of the Church." So it does appear to be like if there's enough pushback against it in certain conservative Catholic churches or regions or congregations, that then they'd say, okay, well, not in that scenario. So it's classic, like incremental change. It's like when the Pope has kind things every now and then about gay people, but, you know, it's not like you came out in favor of gay marriage, right? I'm pretty sure he didn't do that. This is another example. Like, yeah, we're cool with trans people. You know, I'm cool with them. They could be in their religion and all that fun stuff. But if there's a very conservative Catholic district where they don't want to do that, well, you know, it's pastoral prudence. They could do what they want. That seems to be the general breakdown. Now, I should point out, though, as well, there was just a very conservative Catholic bishop, is it? Or priest? Some conservative Catholic leader in Texas who Pope Francis just dismissed. He basically just kicked him out of the church. Kicked him out of his
Which is
position.
funny because as the video was playing, I saw on the side, it was literally saying that too.
Because apparently this guy's very conservative and he oftentimes undermines the Pope. Now, you know, some might say, oh, heavy-handed tactics or whatever. But look, the fact of the matter is I was raised Catholic, so I know the way that this stuff's supposed to work. And the bottom line is the Pope in the Catholic religion is like the closest thing to God on the earth. The Pope
and
is
his
supposed to have,
word
like, a
is
direct
absolute
line to
by
God.
your
So
guys'
anything the Pope
logic,
says
remember?
is
So
basically
if
Catholic
he says be
Catholic
pro-LGBT,
teaching.
you shut
So
up
for
and
somebody
accept
who's
it.
a Catholic to then turn around and say, I disagree with the guy who's a demigod.
You
it's like,
dare defy
all right,
God's
well, you're not
word?
really doing this whole
You should be
Catholicism the way
smited
it's
like
supposed
zombies.
to be done. So if he wants to kick your ass out, hey, man, that's the hierarchy you signed up for. You signed up for this hierarchy. So he dismissed one of these conservative leaders in the Catholic Church. That's kind of based. But look, is this going to lead to widespread acceptance of trans people in Catholicism? I don't know if I'd go that far. I don't know. It's interesting because Catholics are the most evenly split religious group in America, where you look at polling and it's almost exactly 50% of Catholics are Democratic voters and 50% are Republican voters. And so this is sort of in line with what it's like in the U.S. in a sense, right? Where it's like some are conservative, some are liberal. I've been in Catholic Mass where they try to make it as much as possible really apolitical. It's not like, you know, Midwestern or Southern Baptist stuff or evangelical Christian stuff. It's not like the hardcore Protestants who are all about like preaching anti-abortion stuff and socially conservative stuff. The Catholic Church, even though they are like anti-abortion, it never really came up, at least in the church that I was taken to as a kid. And so, I don't know. Look, as per usual, this Pope goes above and beyond what other religious leaders are willing to say and do when it comes to various progressive social issues, which is good. He's anti-war and all that stuff. That's all good. But, of course, I can't help but have the agnostic and the atheist in me come up here at the end and say, this, like, sort of half-measure bullshit is just what happens when you have a religious framework and you're up against a tide of social conservatism, which was part of the church for so long. It's like you can never just come out and say, we are totally pro-trans people. It's got to be this weird, mealy-mouthed, middle-of-the-road, like, you know, maybe in some instances they can be part of the church, but maybe in other instances not. Like, you know what I'm saying? And same thing with the comments on gay people's better than any other religious leader. But at the same time, it's like, not enough, right? So this is my pitch to just don't be part of a legalized, larger cult, right? Be agnostic, be atheist, be secular. You know, this is the name of the channel, right? Say secular talk.
Or,
you can
at
use
the
your
very
mind.
least, be liberal and all that.
Yes.
Because ideally, as I've said before, we want no religion whatsoever. But the next best thing, the more likely thing is going to happen is we have to get religion liberalized and have liberals in power of all these religions and support all the liberals we can. So I guess us have to sometimes support Francis because he has done a lot of progressive things over the last 10 years as the Pope. Like, let's see. Remember years ago he said atheists can get into heaven, which, like, that's not going to work on us because we don't believe that crap. But hey, at least you're being nice about it instead of saying we're going to go to hell and all that. He said, like, like, LGBT things, like, before, and plus this now with trans people. I think we covered a few bumps ago where he was, like, saying, like, America's, like, the far right in America are, like, too hardcore on abortion. Remember that?
Yep.
He has said a lot of anti-war stuff, although he's kind of iffy on the Russo-Ukraine war, which is a little sussy in that regard. But yes, he's probably been the best pope in a long time in that regard, but he needs to go all the way.
You're bringing up to be part of this weird group in order to feel like you have meaning and purpose. In fact, I think more oftentimes than not, it's some secular thing that provides meaning and purpose for people. It's not necessarily religion. Religion does for many people. There's a lot of people who find meaning and purpose outside of some religious context and framework. And I think that's preferable. I think that's just better. Hey, y'all, do me a favor.
And we gotta say about that. Surprising. France is actually being very base again.
Yeah, pretty cool.
It sucks, though, he's up there in age, so if when he ever dies soon and gets replaced, hopefully it'll keep that momentum going, like 10 years straight of being somewhat based and all that. Because that would suck if he gets replaced and it goes to shit soon afterwards. But yeah, good on Francis at least. Alright, so, on to the next topic.
Time to die laughing. Bernie Sanders prevents a brawl.
Oh my gosh. This is hilarious. And there's the video. So, of course, we probably should have played one of Kyle's videos because I think he had better context for this, but I think this PBS video is quicker. So, some stupid dipshit Oklahoma senator had a meltdown with a labor union leader or something like that about like tweets or whatever, and almost got into a fight. And of course, based Bernie, being the base grandpa he is, shut that down and prevent the fight from happening. Multiple times, too, I made ad as well.
Yeah.
And this is why. Can you imagine if Bernie was president? Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine how awesome this would be?
Yes. Now, let's talk about Mr. O'Brien himself, his behavior. As everybody knows, and it's here in the last
and dipshit Senator here is the aggressor, too, just so you all know.
Your demeanor today. It's quite different. But after you left here, you got pretty excited about the keyboard. In fact, you tweeted at me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And let me read what the last one said. It said, greedy CEO who pretends like he's self-made. Sir, I wish you was in the truck with me when I was building my plumbing company. Myself and my wife was running the office because I sure remember working pretty hard and long hours.
But you don't anymore.
Pretends like he's self-made. Yep. What a clown. Fraud. Always has been, always will be.
That sounds about accurate.
Tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy.
Well, remember about this tough guy persona. Just wait like in a few seconds or whatever.
Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big
Oh,
guy.
stop it.
Is that your solution every time?
To get up this
sit
fight.
down. Sit down. Okay. You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond? Mr.
Hold
Chairman?
it. Hold it.
Ah, Bernie being awesome as always.
If we can't, no,
This is
I have the
what
mic.
he said.
I'm sorry.
This is
Hold
what
it.
he said.
You'll have your time.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Oh, no, you can't. This is a hearing. And God knows the American people have enough of contempt for Congress. Let's not
I don't
make
like
it worse.
thugs and bullies. And that's what-
I don't like you because you
Hold
just
it.
described yourself.
Hold it.
Burn!
That's fine.
All right.
Make your statement.
Then let's do this, because I did challenge you, and I accepted your challenge, and you went quiet.
No, I didn't go quiet.
Hold on.
No,
You challenged me to a cage match,
No,
acting like a
sir.
12-year-old schoolyard bully.
Excuse me. Hold it. No, excuse me. I have the
I
mic.
will say exactly.
Senator
what you
Mullen,
said.
I have the mic. You have questions on any economic issues, anything that said, go for it. We're not here to talk about physical abuse.
Why
You
can't we
brought-
have
we're
more
not talking
adults in the
about
room like
a person.
Bernie?
And let me show you his hearing. I want to expose this thug to who he is.
Oh, the
You're not pointing, that's
projection!
disrespectful.
I don't care about respecting you at all. I
You
respect
can
don't
also
respect
tell
you at all.
he's subtly
So, hold-
racist there
Hold
as
it.
well.
No,
Switch out the word.
You don't want to
Hold
be
it.
the most
Hold
elite
it,
people
please.
acted.
Probably really
Please.
means.
all right? This is excuse me. This is a hearing to discuss economic issues. All right? If you have questions for Mr. O'Brien or anybody else on what he has said, go for it.
I mean-
But we're not here to talk about fights or anything else.
I'm quoting exactly what he said.
You can
and
say
this
what
is-
you want,
This is
but-
your witness
This
you
is
brought.
my
And let me.
witness.
I'm exposing him.
You can
as a
talk
person
anything
who
you
he
want.
is. So
but
in
no fight-
2013,
Nope.
in 2013, O'Brien was suspended by the Teamsters for intimidating your own members. In 2014, you were part of what would you say, organizing the harassment, intimidation of the Top Shelf crew.
Chef, not chef.
Top Chef. Okay, and then and I think in the reports they said sexual, racist, and homophobic slurs and death threats. 14 tires were sliced, and 5 Teamsters were arrested. And you said, "Well, I had nothing to do with it." But however, in that same statement, you said, "But if I get called to testify, I'll plead the fifth." This is a witness you brought in here. In 2017, you were removed as lead negotiator by then President Hoffa for UPS for your actions. And then in 22, when this guy was elected, what he said after he got elected was he wanted to bring the mob mentality back to the Teamsters. This is your guy.
And you're obviously going to give him a chance to respond to your questions.
Absolutely, because this
Oh,
is my
no, he's
question.
not.
Because you called me out. I didn't call you out.
Yeah, you did.
You said anytime, any place.
That's
what you said.
that. Let's get the record
Okay.
straight.
Ms. Hold it, no.
Hold on.
Senator Mullen, do you have a question for the witness?
Yeah. I think
Okay,
that's
let's
what we're getting
hear
at.
it.
So, anytime, any place.
No, that's not,
April is a charity event.
no, that's
for-
not, no.
No, it's a, he,
No, we-
sir, he said it, and this is my
He is
time,
here to
and you
tell-
can set
no.
parameters on what the questions can or cannot be asked, and I'll ask.
No,
you
you're not
questions.
we're not gonna be talking about
we
physical
understand.
confrontation.
Oh, this is about charity, for a union charity, because this
This
is for
is,
firefighters and
do you have a
policemen.
question on his
April-
testimony?
Can it,
April-
neckbeard
April-
Karen?
Do you have
grow
a
up. You're an
question
embarrassment.
on his, let's not
You
be,
said it.
You're an
You
embarrassment.
said
You're
it,
an
and I'm just
embarrassment.
simply answering it.
You
Senator
reached
Mullen,
out
go
to
hold it,
everybody-
hold it.
I-
Senator Mullen, you made some charges.
Charges.
Mr. O'Brien, do you want to respond to
Yeah,
the
go ahead,
question?
please.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality of it is, you know,
Accept my challenge,
Mr.
tough guy.
Mullen, tough guy.
Answer, hold it, answer the questions.
All right, you're one. He
Please.
made a lot of statements, right? And his statements are fiction at best.
Fiction, I read them.
Can you answer,
What?
answer the question, please?
I can't understand them, to be honest.
Dude, everyone in the back is laughing
so
at this.
What was your question?
I know, it's amazing.
Well, no, you said I made a lot of statements.
No, but what's your question? I don't understand your question. Could you repeat it?
You said anytime, any place.
What's your question?
Accept the challenge.
What challenge?
You said anytime, any place. I'm accepting yours, so why don't you come
What
back?
challenge? What challenge are you talking
April
about?
30th. How about we do it for a charity at the Smoking Guns in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
No, we're not going to be
what was the
talking about
challenge?
physical
What are you talking about?
confrontations here.
You want to fight me?
What do you say by anytime, any place?
Let's have coffee, discuss our differences.
Oh, that's what you said.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
All right, well, let's sit down and have coffee.
Let's
I'd
do
love
it.
to.
I'd love to.
But
It's
the,
funny how you're backing
Okay.
out.
Well, I don't back on anything.
You did.
You're the one. You're a 100.
Senator-
Should be the most influential people in this country, making changes.
Senator
You're
Hassan-
focused on.
Okay,
You're
thank
focused
you.
on
Why did
debate
you-
that's not
Fine.
even relevant.
Text me
You're an
and they
embarrassment.
got
You're an
silent.
embarrassment.
They went
Look,
silence after
An embarrassment to the
text.
state of
this
Oklahoma.
hearing is about the condition of the working class in America.
You
That's
brought
what
a
we're
thug
talking.
into this.
You're the biggest thug here.
You brought him in.
You're the biggest thug. Even your colleagues call you.
Why
a
you do
joke.
what you're doing, Senator Hassan?
Thank you very much, Mr.
Senator
Chair.
Hassan, you got a
Senator
question?
Mullen, please yield. I've been recognized by the chair.
Why
no.
does Bernie have to be like the sweet grandpa around here that has to be the adult in the room for crying out? Why can't you all just be adults? It's not that hard to do. But again, when you're when you're a dipshit conservative, that's not surprising that you can't control your emotions and all that.
Yeah.
So what do you gotta say about Bernie being the adult in the room as literally every single time with these clowns?
Yeah,
I
it's
feel-
like, it's funny. Really, it's actually genuinely really funny to watch.
I feel
It's
very
like,
sorry for him having to deal with these for decades now.
Yeah,
All these decades of
Stupid.
dealing with this crap. But hey,
it's absolutely
Now, can you imagine, guys, if he was president and had to do this stuff? All the shutting up he would have had to do to be diplomatic and everything. So awesome. But America had their chance twice, and they fucking blew it, as always, because they're stupid. All right, so now, on to the next topic.
And that would be the 2023 midterm results.
So of course, guys, every November.
Like
yes, it's not the presidential election like next year it is. It wasn't the midterms like it was last year, but in odd number of years in America, there are still elections that happen. There are some Senate elections, there are some congressional elections, there's some governor races, and there's referendums and all that. So, for another year in a row, progressives won big, both on weed and abortion rights and stuff like that. And, oh boy, we're going to get to a little big baby Matt Walsh meltdown about it soon afterwards. But first, let's get to the actual results, as Kyle is going to cover them as I find the video. Because this stuff is awesome, and conservatives should be terrified of potentially next year.
Show, I have a giant one for you today. So, we're going to get to the election results.
Kyle, how many times I got to tell you to stop doing these long intros?
Effectively...
Here we go, back
you
up a
already
bit.
have subscribed or are clicking subscribe right now.
Shut up and get to the topic.
Election night last night. What is the top line takeaway? Democrats effectively swept, with the one exception of Mississippi, which might not be too surprising. It's Mississippi. It's one of the most conservative states in the country. But anyway, so we had Virginia. In Virginia, you have both state houses are now Democratic. Previously, I think one was Democratic and one was
being
Republican.
salty about
Glenn Youngkin, the governor in Virginia, who was not up for election.
Yeah, Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, tried so hard to make it like a supermajority Republican control in Virginia, and it failed spectacularly. I can flex as a Marylander on you Virginians, too.
This time, but he was trying to get it so that both state bodies would be Republican so that they could get more of their agenda through. That didn't happen. There was a lot of talk from Youngkin about, hey, you know, if you get me more Republicans, then perhaps we'll do a 15-week abortion ban. And
you would think after the last year or so, after Roe v. Wade was gone, seeing pro-choice success after each election, and we're going to get to more of that in a little bit, you would think that maybe, just maybe, we need to hold off on saying stuff like that because the majority of Americans don't agree with you on that. Like, you saying that is going to make it more likely Democrats are going to win because we don't agree with you, dipshit. So, I was going to say shut your mouth, but no, I want you to keep talking so you keep losing. So please, keep talking. Keep making mistakes.
And ultimately, that may have backfired massively because now Democrats hold both state bodies. So you have that. Kentucky.
See what happens when you open your mouth like Trump, Youngkin?
Andy Bashir, who's the incumbent Democrat in a very red state, versus David Cameron. Andy Bashir,
British Prime Minister running America. What?
Remember,
similar
this
name.
is a very red state. Trump won this state easily, and Bashir absolutely crushed Cameron. So that one should scare Republicans, especially because
shows that Democrats can win in the South too if they're maybe progressive and all that. I don't know exactly Bashir's politics though, but he's got to be some sort of progressive to be able to do good in all that regard. As we keep explaining to these dipshits that we can't win all these states and all that. You can. You just got to have a good candidate, which most of the times you don't run good candidates.
Apparently in the last 5 elections, whatever happened in the Kentucky race before the election actually went on to predict what would happen in the general election the next year for president. So, kind of wild, kind of wild. Now, trends are not always set in stone, but that certainly is an interesting data point, to say the least. Now, beyond that, we also have Ohio, where there were 2 big direct ballot initiatives. One of them was the right to an abortion. Another one was legalized weed. And both of those things crushed. So it looks like when all is said and done, it's going to be by double digits likely for both of them.
And for all of you who don't know, because I think we covered this back in August, Republicans in Ohio tried to run an illegal, I must emphasize, an illegal referendum where they were going to make it where if it passed, it was going to require 60% votes to get any sort of referendum done in Florida. And the reason why it was legal, because they passed a law months beforehand where they were not, I think it was they were not allowed to run votes like referendums and stuff like that. That point in the year where in an off year where no one would be running all that. I mean, where a vote would be like very tame because like an off year stuff for election. But they did it anyway illegally because they thought that, hey, low turnout, which means we might be able to get what we want passed. Because the reason why they did it, because they wanted to prevent abortion, codifying abortion in Ohio's constitution, which, if it's not 60%, it might not work. Like, if it's 50%, yes, it's going to work because the majority of Americans are pro-choice, but I don't know about 60%. It's up in the air, so they try to do the illegal referendum to try and ban abortion, basically. Well, they failed the referendum back in August, and I don't know if it got 60%, but overwhelmingly, like 59% of Ohioans voted to make abortion stay legal.
Those things.
So
It
stay
gets back
mad.
to something I've said a million times, man. When you put stuff on the ballot that is a specific issue, and as long as you don't have big money flooding in and obfuscating people with misleading ads, usually what happens is people take the common sense position and they go, yeah, I think we should have legal weed. Yeah, I think, a woman should be able to control her own body. And this is why direct democracy, in many instances, has phenomenal outcomes, right? Like, and even if you disagree with the results of some conclusions from your fellow Americans in a direct democratic situation, at least it's not some, like, soulless lobbyist who's the reason why we got policy X, Y, or Z. It's actually because your fellow Americans wanted that policy. So, again, man,
Walsh
across
is
the
not gonna
board,
be happy
kind
to
of
hear that in
sweet.
the next video.
Democrats crushed in Virginia.
I
They
heard
crushed
that.
in Kentucky. These ballot initiatives crushed in Ohio. And in Mississippi, I'll get to more on that in just a second because there's an interesting asterisk for that conversation as well. But now people are bringing up, well, hey, man, all these polls of Biden are miserable right now. He has like a 37% approval rating. He's losing to Trump in 5 out of 6 swing states and losing by pretty big margins. I think in the average of polls now, he's even down a little bit for the national popular vote, which is kind of devastating because Biden would probably need to win by 3 or 4 points nationally in order to win because of the sort of built-in advantage that Republicans have had in the Electoral College, at least in recent years. And it opens up a good question, right? Is he really as weak as the polls are showing?
Yeah, Kyle, Chank, and others, as we talked about, it's way too early to do polls. The election is still a year away. Wait till a few months before the election before we actually say. Like, you're doing polls that are way too early. Just like I said before last time. Like, there were, around this time in 2011, there were polls showing Obama was losing to Romney and a whole bunch of other Republican candidates. But we saw he won. It's too early, so you need to fucking wait. And also, more importantly, you guys also, for some reason, I don't know why, you're underestimating Trump's situation, where he's in a worse position than Biden. So, no matter how bad Biden is in a situation, Trump is in such an even worse spot that Biden could still win despite all of his issues. But, like, I don't understand why people, like, downplay Trump's problem. I don't get it.
I
They
kind of have an answer to that
overemphasize
question.
Biden's problems.
My answer is yes, he is. Because when you look at the same poll that Trump was crushing Biden in, there's a question where it's like a generic Democrat versus Trump. Who do you support? And the generic Democrat beats Trump by 8 points. Now, by the same token, all these Democrats who just did really well in this race, what are they? Generic Democrats, right? So generic Democrat polls well, and Biden does not poll well. So I don't really think there's much of a contradiction there. I understand that good faith people could disagree with that, but I do think the polls are real. I do think Biden is struggling massively at the moment, but also at the same time, generic Democrat crushes generic Republican. And why is that? The answer is very simple. People are not over Roe versus Wade being overturned. They're just not. We've now had
we're
6
not
direct
going to.
votes on abortion since Roe v. Wade was overturned. And abortion wins every single time with crushing margins, even in deep red
Because Americans
states.
are pro-choice,
Ohio's like a
dipshit.
+8 red state right now. And it looks like
And I
abortion's
cannot
going to
wait
win
till
by...
when we make it in our Constitution next election next year. Can't wait to see all you freaking mauled as potentially Biden wins again. Yeah, you could suffer with Biden. You could suffer with Biden and win. I'll mock you all like I did in 2020. But my main thing is, hey, at least abortion is now in our Constitution. Let's go.
By double digits. So I think that's the big thing. I think the election denialism still hurt them. I think the fact that Republicans seemed kind of crazy, they couldn't pick a speaker, and there was chaos, there was a civil war going on, mix all that with the abortion issue.
Like I said last year, because it's been now a year since the last year's midterms. you guys are too radical. You have to change your minds and start becoming liberal if you want to win. That's why you're losing.
And people just
dipshits.
prefer generic Democrats to generic Republicans. Okay, now let me
And
show
we're
you
going to see a radical person in a little bit.
Glenn Youngkin, who was not up for election, but you had the state bodies where the elections were happening. He was campaigning to try to get more Republicans to win, and they didn't. But look at this, man. He actually sent out well-timed rebate checks to give people money right before the election, and those checks had his name on it. Honestly, it's a brilliant political strategy. It's something that probably
that is what Trump did too.
Yeah.
But
it didn't work this time.
So yay.
And again, I think it's because Roe v. Wade overrode that. The issue of abortion overrode that. The issue of Republican extremism overrode that. People aren't really voting for Democrats as much as they're voting against Republicans. So even this intelligent political trick flopped, which is amazing when you think about it. Okay, more. So this is crazy. This is the 2020 presidential map, Trump versus Biden. Trump crushed Biden all over the place here. But then look at this. This is Bashir versus Cameron. Bashir absolutely walloped Cameron. It wasn't even close. So then we also have this. This is, you can see this really long line here. This is in Mississippi. This was at the Wildwood Baptist Church in Clinton. And this is the Democratic stronghold in Mississippi. And basically, the point here is, I don't know if this was on purpose or not, but
of course
effectively
it was on
this is
purpose.
voter suppression because you ran out of ballots multiple times here. They had to refill the ballots 5 times, and each time they only came back with 100 ballots. So how many people weren't able to vote as a direct result of this? And now, Tate Reeves, the Republican corrupt governor in Mississippi, who looks like a fat version of Ryan Grimm, now he's going to get another term.
That's the only sucky thing about this.
This is my favorite video coming out of the.
And by the way, that Mississippi governor election, which unfortunately the Republican won, I think he only won by like 4 or 5 points. So it was.
Oh wow! Wasn't Mississippi? Hang on.
Mississippi is one of the most reddest states in the country. So the Democrat getting within 5 points potentially. That's a pretty good sign that maybe we could potentially get Mississippi to a swing state, depend on the circumstances. Even though it doesn't have a lot of electoral votes, so it probably wouldn't matter too much to the election results. But hey,
16 points.
What?
16 points.
What?
Trump won by. This is a plus 16 Trump state, and the Democrats swung back 11.
So yeah, so it was within 5. Nice.
Election.
I may actually look it up.
The Republicans are huffing copium to the max.
Huffing copium on Newsmax because Ohio passed the bill to legalize weed.
There's Rick Santorum on Newsmax.
Oh, hello, Rick Santorum. Are you busy having a Santorum again?
He'll tell you his thoughts on this election.
You put very sexy things like abortion and marijuana on the ballot, and a lot of young people come out and vote. It was a secret sauce for disaster in Ohio. I don't know what they were thinking, but that's why I thank goodness that most of the states in this country don't allow you to put everything on the ballot, because pure democracies are not the way to run a country.
That is.
You hear that, guys? Santorum does not believe in democracy because it goes against his way. Why am I not? Are you surprised? Because I most certainly am not.
I'm not surprised at all.
Because remember, guys, these conservative dipshits are against democracy because it goes against what they want. When you have democracy, when you have actual democracy, we win. That's why they don't want us to vote, because they don't want us to get what we want. And I actually looked at the Mississippi governor results. He won by 4.5% actually, so it's even closer than I thought. So yeah, maybe potentially, if right circumstances, maybe we can get on Mississippi potentially.
It is such an admission. Oh, that's such an admission. You guys don't understand. My ideas are so unpopular that I can't win. We can't win.
Well, thank you for admitting. We know that, though.
Decide stuff. They're gonna go eventually.
We know that. That's why you'd want to stop us.
10 times. So you can't run a country that way. You can't run a country by giving people what they want. Oh, Rick, thank you for saying it so plainly in such a straightforward way. We appreciate it. Because my take is the exact opposite. We need more direct democracy in this country. I think we should have a constitution that is expanded upon. So not only do you have negative rights, but you also have positive rights, or negative liberty and positive liberty. So you have freedom from oppression of the government, but you also have freedom to, I would say, certain things like healthcare, for example, right? So I'd expand on the Constitution, and outside of that, I would expand on direct democracy for everything that's outside of the realm of rights. Because people should have a direct say in what they want happening in this country. And he comes out there and says, no, when you put stuff to a vote, I will lose every time. Exactly! Which is why we should put it to a vote. Because people should have self-determination.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, overall, this was a very good night for Democrats. The question is this going to carry over to 2020? I wouldn't get overconfident.
2024, you mean, Kyle?
Because I think the poll numbers of Biden doing poorly are real. I also think Trump is phenomenally unelectable as well. We have two people.
Trump's even more unelectable, Kyle. Come on.
Yeah.
We had this talk last time, I think.
Do you read too much into this?
When he was talking
about
Bristol.
What is this?
Yes.
A generic Democrat will beat a generic Republican.
Like,
in
it's
today's
getting
day and age
annoying that you
because
guys
of
are
Roe v. Wade,
underestimating
because
how
GOP
bad of a
extremism.
situation Trump is in.
But Biden is uniquely weak, and Trump is uniquely weak.
I don't know if I would say Biden is uniquely weak. Trump, on the other hand, he is uniquely
This is
weak.
effectively a toss-up. But when all's said and done, in this particular election, there's no other way to spin it. Giant W for Democrats. Hey, y'all, do me a favor.
So yeah, what are you going to say about the great news of progressives winning in the midterms this year?
Yeah, it's
usually,
awesome.
Yeah, this is usually the times where we don't usually win because low turnout and this stuff. It's only the presidential elections where we get people to show up. But yeah, awesome results. Stay mad, dipshit conservatives, that Ohio legalized weed and made abortion constitutional law. And stay mad that we won governor's races across the country. Sucks we couldn't win Mississippi, but hey, I'm still happy to know that was within 4.5 points in a supposed low turnout year, so maybe next time around we can get it. And hopefully, flip it in presidential election coming up next year. I found out Mississippi has 6 electoral votes, so hey, any more would be helpful. Alright, so now, on to the next topic.
Matt Walsh is a stubborn Nazi loser.
Yep, so, as you can tell by the title, Matt Walsh has not taken the results of the midterms very well. He has been coping even more harder than Santorum, if you want to believe it. And he says he will not compromise on abortion even if we lose every election. Which, hey, yeah, don't compromise, please. Be stubborn in your ways and lose elections, because that's good for me. So, please do. So, let's watch him cope and see that he can't get his way.
So this is awesome. Yeah. We had some elections the other night, and as you guys all know, Democrats did well, and Republicans didn't. So you had in Ohio, they had the direct vote on weed and abortion won. I think ultimately it may have been by double digits in both cases.
I need to look it up, too, if that was within 60 points to see if that referendum would have made a difference. I need to look that up.
Crushing. Now, Ohio is a Republican +6 or +8 state, and they
Although Ohio won, Republicans won Ohio both times in the last 2 presidential elections by quite a big margin, I still say it's within a swing state. Just like Walsh and other idiots, Florida's a swing state too. You need to get that for your thick heads, as Trump only won by 3 points. That is a swing state.
Overwhelmingly voted for weed and abortion. Okay. You also have what went on in Kentucky, where incumbent Democrat Andy Beshear crushed Cameron, his Republican opponent, and it wasn't looking good. Virginia, now Democrats hold both state legislative bodies.
Youngkin's gonna suffer, and I'm gonna enjoy it. Now you'll know how Hogan had to feel for 8 years with a Democratic supermajority in my state.
So Democrats are winning by simply not being Republicans and not being psycho on abortion. Well,
okay, before we begin, I just looked it up too. The abortion law that was passed in Ohio, it only won by 56.6%. So yeah, guys. That's actually one of the lower vote totals of all the ones that we've had so far. But yeah, guys, if Republicans got their way in November, that wouldn't have passed because that would have required 60%, which is undemocratic. So yeah. That's why we cannot let these fascists get their way. Because we wouldn't have won even with unless we had 60% of the vote. We can win with 50%. 60% is not guaranteed, though. And that's why it's a good thing they failed.
Needless to say, the Fox News losers don't know how to deal with this. They don't know how to
What
do
else
it.
is
They're
new?
struggling.
They can't take
So here's
anything.
Greg Gutfeld with his thoughts on what happened.
Yeah, I say Democrats are very lucky that they're running against a party with principles.
Ah.
Because when you have principles, you're
No, Gutfeld. Republicans have no principles other than watching people suffer.
less likely to compromise.
No,
in exchange
and it's
for power,
just you being evil, Matt Walsh.
right.
Because
So,
there's
yeah,
other
sure,
stuff he
Republicans
said
can
about
win.
children and his own kids. Yeah, I think it's accurate to call him Matt Walsh.
Oh God, what he said before. And about getting like 15-year-old girls, young as possible, to get them pregnant, all that.
Yeah. But, I've heard he also said questionable things about prepubescent girls.
Yes.
Which makes things even worse.
I just hope he doesn't have a girl. He has I think 4 kids or more. So I hope he doesn't.
6.
That would be terrifying.
6, he almost certainly has at least one daughter that he's abused.
Oh God.
He's
Please
got
take
at
her away
least one
as soon as you
daughter.
can, Child Protective
Oh,
Services.
at
Please, just
least
save
one
her.
daughter.
Save her, save her, save her.
Oh.
You'll get lower taxes and a stronger economy and more security in
I
the
want to
spot.
say,
Oh yeah, that sounds like everything Democrats would do, you dumbass.
That means you're going to give in on
Services
abortion.
pay him a visit. The visit, make sure he's not
FBI,
abusing
open
his
up!
kids too badly.
I prefer to lose on principle. People feel that way. Dems, it's usually the opposite. Power trumps principle. It's why they were okay with Soros funding DAs that destroyed our cities. The country suffers, but they won those seats. It's why the original party of free speech comes out in favor of censorship because it's
Oh,
suppressed.
please. Tell me what the Republicans are saying about pro-Palestine groups right now, you loser.
And
They want to disband them. They want to ban them.
unfortunately,
Calling them
Democrats.
Nazis,
Unfortunately,
calling
Democrats.
them Hamas supporters, calling them Nazis, calling for them to be massacred.
And unfortunately, Democrats too, Kyle. Just what happened recently, there was a big protest somewhere, and now Democrats are trying to censor him too. So it's not just a Republican thing when it comes to the Israel-Palestinian conflict, unfortunately.
Because remember, they censured Rashida Tlaib, and again, Republicans are trying to incite violence against her, as they always do, because she's Palestinian, and therefore they don't consider her a human being.
You're saying they're
evil.
You're saying they're racist? How dare you, kind sir?
They're genocidal terrorists alongside fake progressive CIA terrorists like David Pakman.
Jesus Christ.
Public opinion as disinformation, and they win. It's why they don't mind a non-border, because maybe long-term...
Oh my God, how many... I think we're going to need to do a video on this soon. Guys, Biden is just as pro-border protection as Trump is. I think they even did fun with the border wall recently. He's doing all what you want. He's doing what you want. He's not doing what we want. He's doing what you guys want, and you're still lying about him saying he wants open borders. Will you shut the fuck up? I'm tired of this crap.
We're voters.
The reason why Republicans are losing is because they're so principled. Or maybe it's because they're led by a criminal who was indicted 4 times and has 91 criminal charges against him. A guy who still acts like he won the 2020 election when he didn't. He is the face of extremism.
Daddy Trump is God.
Maybe it's also because Roe versus Wade was overturned and people correctly blame Republicans for that.
They're evil.
The problem is that we're too principled.
Well, yeah, you are too principled. You're too principally stubborn to accept the fact that no one agrees with your ideas.
We're too principled.
Yeah.
And you can't convince people of your ideas either because they, suck.
Or you're too reductive
because
in
you're
how you view
evil.
abortion. That all these states that are going super extreme and saying, ban it from the moment of conception or ban it at 6 weeks or whatever it is, maybe
And
that's
don't forget
way
that
too
North
hard line of
Carolina
view, and people
Republican who
simply don't
tried
agree.
to put a law up into the North Carolina Congress that would have murdered or legalized murdering women who seek abortions.
With you. Now, to be fair, he says, hey, they're principled and they lose. I'll take it. Well, here's a great example of exactly that. So Matt Walsh, quote, I wouldn't compromise on abortion, even if it really did mean losing every election from now to kingdom come. I will never accept abortion. I will never compromise on it.
I mean, I kind of have respect that someone, I would not accept Watch the way it is right now. But you gotta also accept the fact that it is a losing issue, Matt. So if you're not gonna compromise on abortion, that's fine. But just know you are gonna lose and all that. And by the way, here's a funny thing too, Matt. If you just dropped off the abortion issue for quite a while and became pro-choice, Republicans could maybe get back into power again, and then maybe once Republicans have the majority or supermajority, maybe then you could all do your abortion ban across the country, because then you would have the power potentially.
Then you're murdering women and your legalization of murdering women who are seeking abortion.
If you just dropped it and became pro-choice, maybe you guys could get what you want in the end, to ban abortion. But because you're too fixated on this issue, you're going to keep losing. Which, hey, like I said, please
remember they're super misogynistic. So,
and we all know that's the real reason, people. It's not about abortion and sanctity of life. It's because they want to control women. That's the reality of it.
Oh, and don't forget, if some of these people, and I reckon Matt Walsh will be one of them, would probably be like, oh, like girls need to be experienced in sex when they start puberty. So they thought they could get away with it.
I'm cringing and shaking at the thought of him saying that, but I would not be surprised if he says that. And he's gonna be so evil.
Yeah.
I would play the clip for you, but it's long and he's boring. But he says literally this at the end. Okay, so hey, Matt Walsh, we have.
Oh, Kyle, we want to see the video.
Proceed. Man, it is wild to me. They don't even Sean Hannity has come to a realization here. He's like, I think this is the main issue holding us back. Of course, Hannity's more of a Trump denialist that acts like Trump isn't hurting him, right? Isn't hurting the Republicans. But Hannity pins it all on this. And he's almost like, for the love of God, either stop talking about it or have a more moderate position. Like, I think his thing is like 15 weeks, even in the red states. And, maybe that's a good idea.
I wouldn't even call that really moderate.
You got guys like Matt Walsh, who, hey, to be fair,
Gutfeld was right with his principal point.
Roe versus Wade. Because that was the moderate position. But see, but these people just don't want abortion, period, end of discussion.
They don't want it. No, they're misogynists. They want to control, beat, and rape women, and they probably want, and depending on how
rape their kids too.
Walsh will want to abuse and molest kids without impunity.
Oh, I just hope he doesn't have a girl. Please don't. Just please don't.
Against abortion. And if that means from the moment of conception or it's murder, which I think is what Matt Walsh's position is, then, like I said, by all means, proceed, sir. Because you will continue to get your cheeks clappington. This is the road that you want to go down. So, look, I say all that to simply point out, good. Keep your principles. And it's so funny, too, because it's like, we are so principally pro-life. But then the immediate question that follows is, okay, are you against the death penalty?
He's got two daughters.
Oh,
he's got
no.
2 daughters.
No. Oh, no. Oh, I'm terrified what's going to happen to them. No. Oh, no.
And one of them's between two. One of them's between two, so she's got a 1 in 3 chance of getting raped.
Oh, no.
Getting raped by her own twin brother.
Oh, no.
No,
please take them away from him before he does something evil.
So you're pro-life only for gametes and zygotes.
And we're not joking here. We're serious.
Oh, 2013. The eldest girl. It might already be too late. She might have already been thing. She's 10.
Oh no.
She might have already been abused. She might have already. Time's running out to save her.
Oh.
We're going to get her out in the next couple of years, or she's going to be a teen pregnancy, possibly leading to death.
Oh, no.
If she hasn't already been,
Oh, no. And Walsh.
And brother. The youngest daughter is currently 4.
Oh, God.
So the 2 eldest are 10. Jeremiah is 6. Their next daughter is 4. And they've got 2 twin boys who are nearly 1.
You said he has 4 girls?
4 boys, 2 girls.
Oh my God! Oh God!
2 sets of twins.
Oh,
boy and a girl on, as I said, boy and a girl on the 26th of May, 2013. Their 4th child was born in 2019. So already Julia, the eldest daughter, is likely absolutely messed up already.
Oh, my head hurts just thinking about their safety. Oh, no.
Their 4th child? What's their 4th name?
Oh, God.
The worry there isn't for me isn't so much the 2 daughters, it's how old the eldest one is. She's likely already been,
groomed.
completely messed up by Walsh and probably by her brother as well, knowing
and by the way, the
what
second the baby's born,
Walsh
you guys
is
know
like, what comments Walsh has said, and it's like.
Yep. Get him as young as possible.
Walsh
He has said that I think we've
done
even
for her.
covered it on this show before. It's evil. Ugh.
gestation fetuses.
Yeah.
And by the way, the second the baby's born, you guys know the deal. What happens? Like, piss off. No child tax
Pro-life,
credit,
but once
no
you're
paid
born,
maternity
you're on
leave,
your
no
own.
paid paternity
Yeah.
leave.
Pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Social safety net.
Yeah.
Enjoy
Safety
capitalism
net. Get
right
outta
off the
here. I don't care
bat.
about that. Not even in the slightest. So it's pro-life in the most limited,
It's not
meaningless
pro-life.
way you can
It's
possibly
forced birth
imagine.
and anti-women.
That's what they mean when they say pro-life.
And being
okay, you want to be
misogynistic.
principled on just the issue of abortion in this very specific way, by all means, because this will keep happening. And I said it before, I'll say it again. Guys, it is not like the Democrats are wonderful, right? It's just that people look at them in comparison to the Republicans, and it is people are voting more in an anti-Republican kind of way.
Just like
versus
anti-Trump the last few years.
It's not like they're excited for Democrats and how great they're doing. It's just that...
And that's another thing, too, I like to point out to these people, like, say, like, oh, Biden's going to lose because of these bad poll numbers. Most people that vote for Biden are not voting for him because they agree with him. They're voting for him because they don't want Trump in. If they're scared more of Trump, they're going to vote for Biden no matter what. Because it's more about keeping Trump out.
They're like, these guys are so out of lockstep with us in immeasurable ways. And Matt Walsh is a key example of this. This guy has been the worst at election advice of anybody in the entire country.
He's been the worst on, like, literally everything we've covered. Like, he says something so stupid and vile every time we cover him.
Trans stuff. And then Republicans did.
And guys, I think the last time we covered him too, he doesn't think some people should be allowed to vote. He thinks voting rights should be restricted. He said that last time I think we covered him.
Voting Rights Act as well, which we could add on to all the same-sex, interracial, interfaith. He's against the Civil Rights Act. He's pro-slavery.
He's a fascist, people. Get it through your heads.
He's not just a fascist. He's a Nazi. He's basically a Nazi at this point.
A grooming Nazi too.
Yep. If they get that get his eldest daughter out within the next couple of years, the horror stories she will probably have.
And I hope the other one gets out soon too.
He was saying it was going to be a red wave, and it wasn't. It was a red
4-year-old out, and she might be she'll be salvageable.
They did.
I'll give you a family example.
Red wave, and it wasn't.
My aunt, she's not biologically my aunt, but I call her aunt, and her former husband. The husband was the husband's in the weird position where he's actually at different times a perpetrator and a victim of domestic violence. But this time he's the perpetrator. The third kid was part of control, but also part there. So kid was about 4 or 5 when her mum finally got out and left him. Since then, so he's that was kid number 3. With the eldest one he disowned because he was LGBT, and the second eldest disowned him. For comparison for ages, the aunt is 10 years younger than my dad, while Mike is about 7 or 8 years. He's just turned 50, while my dad will be turning 60 next year.
Just a year younger than my dad. My dad has B-Day today too.
Yep. And so he's gone on, and so she's now gone on to have a decent amount of success. She's living a good life. She's got her own husband now. They've been together about 2 years. And the daughter's going to be 16 next year. And she's thriving. So, as I said, though, that took years for her to get to that point. And I was able to see some of the, I was actually, like, they're just often enough to see that growth in her. Yeah, she's...
I'm sure Matt Walsh is very angry about that growth.
And then on the other hand, the man, he's shacked up with someone else. 4 kids under 8, all of them with disabilities.
And I'm sure Walsh would go ableist on them.
Oh, yeah, he's evil.
It was a red trickle. And so all like the trans fear-mongering, it's like it all comes to naught. Taking your principled stance on abortion to lose? Okay, that's exactly what'll happen. So, God bless. All right, guys, that's the show. I love y'all.
Yeah. So we gotta say about Walsh being a fascist, Nazi, stubborn fuck.
Not a surprise.
Yep, but hey, please keep going. Yeah, like I said, I always want to tell you, just like I always want to tell Trump to shut up, but why would I want you to shut up? You will do better if you shut up. So please, keep your mouth open. Walsh, keep saying you're never going to compromise ever, which, hey, much respect on that, because I wouldn't compromise on things either, but the things I won't compromise on, I win on. You lose on your uncompromising stuff. So keep
going and keep losing and keep coping, molding, seething, etc.
Keep losing, keep being stubborn, so you maybe gain more power and all that, so you'll become more of a presence, so you'll be made more of a fool of. So yeah, keep coping, that we win. Flex, oh yeah, and please, I know it's gonna be tough for you, Walsh, because I know you really want to. Please don't do anything to your daughters, even though I'm sure you've done something really evil to your oldest one. I will not. If something
that your twin brother potentially has, so. Like orders or something,
just
like after being groomed into it by Walsh.
Just like I won't be surprised if we find out Steven Crowder comes out as trans. If it comes out that you did something violently evil to your kids, I will not be surprised whatsoever. So how about instead of thinking about that, we think about our final topic,
the Russo-Ukraine war update,
which I'm still very angry about because it hasn't been talked about for like the last month because of the Hamas-Israeli war, which is really getting annoying. Yeah. So instead of covering it, like we've done, remember like last year where we covered like every week showing the map and all that changes and all that, since it literally the war has not really changed whatsoever for like almost a year now. There's actually an awesome YouTube channel that apparently I wasn't subscribed to, even though I could have swore I was, called Kings and Generals, and like every like 2 weeks they do a Russo-Ukraine war video update, and this one was 8 days ago, and a lot of interesting things have happened, besides it being just a stalemate, so let's go check it out to wrap it out. Finally, something on the war, because this is, unlike the Hamas-Israeli war, this is an actual existential threat that must be talked about like every way.
And remember, not just to Ukraine, but at least to Moldova and Georgia too.
And a whole bunch of other things.
Yep, Baltic States, Armenia and Azerbaijan, Poland, Romania, the entire Balkans, every country west of Germany.
Oh yeah, that reminds me too. Did you see Dylan Burns did a video with a couple Ukrainians playing Hassan being absolutely stupid on the Russo-Ukraine war, and he got very salty about it?
No, I haven't.
He called Dylan Burns a pervert and a war tourist because of it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
He was so butthurt about it.
What the fuck, dude? Wrong with you, dude? What the
You gotta watch it. He was molded about it. Oh, and the Vanguards also had a meltdown about Burns, too. And all that. Oh my God.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
So, I say about Dylan Burns being a pervert and a war tourist for showing clips of Hassan being stupid to Ukrainians.
No surprises.
And they did, and it turns out pretty much they didn't watch the video.
Somehow Hassan's being worse than his father. What the fuck?
You mean his uncle?
His uncle, right, yeah. His uncle. How are you fucking worse than Greg Yuga and then your fucking uncle and his fucking turf co-host?
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. It's almost I want to cover it as a topic, but it's like so long and all that. That was so hilarious.
We could potentially dedicate an entire episode to it.
Oh, stupid left us on the Russo-Ukraine war again. We need to go for this again,
The war in
people.
Ukraine continues to gradually slip off the international...
Tim, I think at this point we just need to dedicate an entire episode to it.
Oh my God, I don't want to... Oh man, listen to those stupid Karens, oh no.
The radar, as the global audience, media and governments are turning their attention to the Middle East. But the Russian aggression on Ukraine is far from over, as Putin has ordered his troops back onto the offensive to recapture the strategic momentum on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Ukraine is trying to respond with long-range strikes and launching an offensive of its own on the left bank of the Dnipro. It has been an eventful second fortnight of October, which we will describe in this video. This video is made possible.
And of course, sponsorships, go forward.
Really lively.
Keep going. Oh, here we go.
Russia continued to focus its offensive operations in the Avdiivka sector during this period. The first assault was conducted on October.
Yeah, for all we don't know, Russia started a new offensive in the Avdiivka area, which is like in, I think, the Luhansk area. And I was going to say what's going to happen, but I think Kings and Generals will cover it.
10th to 14th, but the Ukrainians repelled it.
Which one of those two areas had they like fully or almost like fully captured like
Bakhmut.
a year ago?
Is that what you're talking about, Bakhmut? Because that was the most recent one earlier
like
this year.
Either Luhansk or Donetsk, one of those two. I know they I know that like a year ago they fully captured like. Eventually fully captured it like 18 months ago.
Oh, Mariupol, you mean? Is that what you're talking about? That was 18 months ago.
Inflicting huge losses.
It was in the east. I think it might have been Donetsk then that they fully captured.
Maybe you're thinking of. I'm not exactly sure. I think it was Severno-Donetsk or something like that. Because that was like in June. And that was in the Donetsk area.
Is on the Russian army.
Yeah.
The 100.
They've got like 90. They've got like almost total thing of Donetsk.
114th Motor Rifle Brigade was the leading force in the initial offensive, but due to heavy losses, it was later reinforced with the 15th, 21st, and 30th Motor Rifle Brigades. On October 19th, the Russian army made another attempt to break through the Ukrainian defenses. After launching a massive barrage of artillery fire and airstrikes on the Ukrainian strongholds in Avdiivka, the Russians attacked in both the north and south to continue their envelopment movement.
Like World
Ukrainian
War II style?
sources described the Russian tactics in the Avdiivka section as follows. 10 tanks, armored personnel carriers, and infantry fighting vehicles are sent to the battlefield. 2 to 3 of them are destroyed by the Ukrainian artillery on the way. The infantry gets out of the vehicles, the remaining vehicles go back. They do it every half hour until they make gains or return to their initial lines to give it another try the next day. The Russian command sends in its Storm Z units, consisting of inmates, as an expendable first-line forward unit, a repeat of the costly Wagner tactic successfully used in the Battle of Bakhmut. This allows the Russian army to preserve its more skilled and experienced troops and to send them when a breakthrough happens. The October 19th assault was another failure for the Russian army, which suffered more losses at the hands of the 110th Mechanized Brigade and other units defending the northern section of Avdiivka. According to the Ukrainian military correspondent Yuri Butizov, massive armored losses suffered by the Russian army in the Avdiivka section forced them to bring in more reserves from the 106th Airborne Division and separate tank battalions, along with the Piatnashka Special Forces Brigade. On October 22nd, Russia launched 5 attacks on the northern flank of Avdiivka and reached a narrow section of the railway line, along with gaining ground towards the Terrakon, some important high ground in this section, which eventually forced the Ukrainian units on the Terrakon to withdraw, turning it into a grey zone not controlled by either of the sides. Almost simultaneously, the Russian 9th, 55th and 110th Brigades have been trying to break through the defense of the 53rd Mechanized Brigade on the Vodyana-Opytna line, gaining minor ground in the process. Russian sources reported a Ukrainian counterattack towards Pisky in this section on October 22nd, but it seems it has not changed the situation on the ground much. On October 25th, the Russians launched another assault from Krasnohorivka in the north of Avdiivka and expanded the area of its control along the railway, and according to Russian sources, captured the Terrakon, although we are yet to see video proof. There have been a few more attacks to gain a foothold in the Avdiivka coke plant, but as of late October, all of them have been repelled. The Ukrainian situation in the Avdiivka section is by no means catastrophic, and they have been inflicting massive losses on the Russian army in this area. Still, the Russians have continued gaining ground, despite these losses, by simply overwhelming Ukrainian defenders with increased artillery shelling and armoured attacks. Evidently, the Russian command feels that it can tolerate these losses, as despite losing thousands of pieces
Russian strategies. Typical strategy of the Russians.
They're going to regret it later on when they have no men left for other things. Maybe that's why you should adopt superior firepower doctrine like America.
Equipment, Russia still has a lot more weapons, vehicles, and equipment to keep attacking the same places over and over again until they capture them. To compare, Ukraine does not have this luxury, as the more minor armoured losses it suffered on the first days of the Zaporizhia counter-offensive forced them to rethink its tactics. Russia will continue attacking Stepova, Berdichi, the coke plant and Severna to cut all the Ukrainian supply lines into Avdiivka, and the situation remains problematic for Ukraine. A potentially significant situation has been developing along the Dnipro. For months, the sides have been exchanging regular artillery fire, while the Ukrainians have been raiding islands of the river delta, along with sections of the left bank. Ukraine has been in control of a small area on the left bank near the Antonivsky Bridge for a while now, but it is not a promising area for a functioning bridgehead due to the terrain. On October 17th, the AFU intensified its attempts to create a bridgehead on the left bank. Several assault groups of the 35th and the 36th Naval Infantry Brigades landed there and immediately captured the village of Poima and gained ground inside the village of Pischanivka. According to Russian sources, this attempt was eventually defeated, but on October 19th, Ukraine gained another foothold on the left bank. Territorial Defense Forces overwhelmed the Russian troops near Krinky, allowing the 35th Naval Infantry Brigade to deploy and gain control of the village. As of late October, the Ukrainian bridgehead in Krinky still exists, and they have even expanded the area of control, managing to bring more troops to the left bank. So far, there is no indication that Ukraine has been able to bring vehicles and equipment to its troops on the left bank, and they have only been supported by artillery firing from the right bank. The Russians are still fighting to destroy the Ukrainian bridgehead. Even if Ukraine succeeds in creating a sustainable bridgehead, we should not expect a lightning-quick advance in this area, since Russia has been building defensive structures on the Kherson front as well, and is probably sending reinforcements to this area as we speak. Russia has no shortage of troops in Ukraine, since, according to the Ukrainian military intelligence official Andriy Yusov, Russia has more than 400,000 soldiers in Ukraine. On the other hand, it is a potentially risky situation. A Ukrainian bridgehead would force the Russians to divert reserves from other fronts, harming their offensive potential in the Avdiivka section and Luhansk front, and their defensive
I mean, they're not really doing that well either way.
potential on the Zaporizhia front and around Bakhmut.
From what I've looked up in the last months they started this offensive, this might be going even worse than Bakhmut, and we saw how deadly it was for them to do that.
Yeah.
According to Russian sources, the Russian command has dismissed the commander of the Dnipro area.
And also that's a good sign that Ukraine has some bridgeheads across the Dnipro as well.
Appointed the VDV commander, Mikhail Teplinsky, who is considered a respected and capable commander in the Russian military. If true, it means that the Russian command is not happy with the performance of its troops along the Dnipro, and recognizes the risk of the Ukrainian breakthrough on this front. On the Zaporizhia and North Luhansk fronts, the status quo persisted. Heavy fighting continues in the Robotyne salient, but neither side has achieved any important gains in this period. On the North Luhansk front, the Russian offensive has largely fizzled out. They have made small gains in the Serebryansky forest area, but have lost ground to the Ukrainians near Sinkivka and Olyanska. But perhaps the most notable event of the second half of October was that Ukraine finally got its ATACMS long-range missiles. After months and months of negotiations and stalling, the United States secretly provided the oldest version of ATACMS, with a range of only 165 kilometers, containing hundreds of bomblets. The Western media has claimed anywhere between less than a dozen to 20 missiles being given to Ukraine. If true, that is an astonishingly low number, which is not going to have a major impact on the war. Perhaps the United States will give more, and Germany will finally agree to send its Taurus long-range missiles after seeing the impact ATACMS had the first time the Ukrainians used it, catching the Russians unprepared. On October 17th, Ukraine launched several ATACMS missiles on Berdyansk and Luhansk airfields, which destroyed at least 7 Ka-52 attack helicopters and 2 Mi-8 helicopters, and damaged another 8 Ka-52s and 7 Mi-8s.
That's still a pretty significant amount. That's like 7. That's like 25 almost helicopters destroyed or damaged. That's still a pretty good amount.
Nice.
Damaged the Russian air.
That's good. No, that's a pretty good fucking number.
People don't dismiss this. This is still a solid amount of helicopters destroyed, damaged. That is a pretty good amount.
Force has suffered since the start of the war, possibly since.
And later on in the video, Kings and Generals is going to actually talk about the casualties and the lost equipment, all that from like since this last video and total for the entire war, and you'll see how much it's
the
done.
End of World War II. It will likely force the Russians to station its fighters and helicopters further away from the ATACMS range,
Get out of
which will
Ukraine,
decrease their
you
effectiveness.
can't reach anymore.
A few months earlier, the Ukrainian military intelligence chief, Kirilo Budinov, argued
like
that
your neighbor,
Ukraine
remember,
would need
can't
hundreds
escape.
of ATACMS missiles to have a genuine impact on the war.
I wonder if their neighbor would like to become all submarine force like the Moskva, remember?
Obviously, ATACMS is not some sort of Wunderwaffe, just like HIMARS or F-16s are not. None of the weapons, tanks, jets or missiles are going to single-handedly win the war for Ukraine, but every weapon that Ukraine gets helps them in the war of attrition currently waged by Russia. More ATACMS means more destroyed Russian assets, and further disruption of Russian logistics. The Ukrainian
Which is something idiots on the left don't understand about this war at the moment. They think, Ukraine's offensive didn't take any territory, therefore they're losing. You're not thinking about attrition, you stupid fox!
People will be happy to hear
Think
about the Biden
long-term
administration's
dumbasses.
intention to ask Congress for $60 billion to aid Ukraine. On October 20th, Biden once again reiterated the American intention to continue supporting Ukraine, but the level of the US military aid to Ukraine in October suggests otherwise, as the Biden administration is struggling with keeping the far right in the US Congress in the fold with regards to Ukraine support. According to the Ukraine Battle Map profile on Twitter, the level of American military aid
thank you very much.
Everywhere.
to Ukraine in October was 93.5% less in comparison with the first half of 2023. The only military aid package pledged by the USA in the second half of October to Ukraine was worth $150 million, which included NASAMS and HIMARS munitions, small arms, AIM-9M and Stinger missiles, and Javelin anti-tank guns, among other things. The United States has also finalized the delivery of all 31 promised M1 Abrams tanks. Let's look at other reports on foreign military aid to Ukraine. On October 18th, the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba stated that Kyiv has signed contracts with 59 companies from 23 countries on the production of weapons for Ukraine, which is consistent with the earlier observation of Ukraine's intention to ramp up domestic military production in order to decrease its dependence on foreign aid. The statement from the US Secretary of Defense William LaPlante regarding the beginning to pivot to rebuilding or building an industrial base inside Ukraine should be seen in the same light. On October 19th, Croatia promised to send all 14 of its Mi-8 helicopters to Ukraine. On October 24th, Germany announced a military aid package worth 1.4 billion euros, consisting of 3 additional Gepard anti-aircraft guns, 40 IQ-35 Hydron and Vector recon drones, a Biber bridge-laying system, 3 HX-81 tank recovery vehicles, 13 border patrol vehicles, and 155mm smoke shells, along with 200 million euros to support the Ukrainian economy. On October 25th, Australia sent demining equipment, portable X-ray machines, a 3D metal printer, and counter-drone systems worth $20 million.
A 3D?
On October
There's
26th,
printers now for metal now, apparently.
Yep.
Did not know. I thought it was just plastic
And
still.
also, we're soon sending another thing of Bushmasters.
Denmark
over.
announced a military aid package worth $522 million, consisting of T-72 tanks, BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicles, artillery shells, drones, small arms, and engineering vehicles. There have also been reports about the US intention to send the so-called Frankensam air defense systems, a hybrid between American and Soviet systems to help Ukraine withstand the expected winter campaign of Russian aerial attacks on the Ukrainians' critical infrastructure.
Oh man, let me rewind
The
that so I can see
expected
entire
winter
screen.
campaign of Russian aerial attacks on the
Yeah, like, guys, look at all this stuff that Ukraine's getting. So, in just the last part of October. This is probably more, and this little bit of aid than Russia has gotten quite a bit in terms of their production.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta realize, if it's a stalemate or war of attrition, the best way to win is to just keep throwing everything we got as superior firepower doctrine of America. Like in Girls on Panda say, attack one tank with 10. You keep flooding weapons in there and eventually win.
The most baffling and frustrating development for Ukraine regarding the military aid from its Western partners was the Bloomberg report claiming that the European Union has completed only 30% of its plan to deliver artillery shells to Ukraine, which are crucial in the ongoing war of attrition. The EU is significantly
That's why
behind
you build
schedule,
up your own
and according to
version
the
of war
Lithuanian
factories
foreign
like in
minister,
Boy
it has
4.
delivered only 300,000 shells, while North Korea has already delivered 350,000 to Russia. It is
It's as
another
though they
example of
expect
many
America to
EU
do
countries
everything around
acting
here.
without any sense of urgency in the face of a strategic threat from Russia. The somber Time magazine story on President Zelensky gives a peek at the current level of frustration in the Ukrainian leadership regarding the Western military aid. Zelensky complained of Ukraine fatigue among Western elites. Exhaustion with the war rolls along like a wave. You see it in the United States and in Europe. And we see that as soon as they start to get a little tired, it becomes like a show to them. I can't watch this rerun for the 10th time. The article also talks about the inability of Ukrainian units to go on an offensive simply due to the lack of weapons. Some have dismissed this article due to its author, Simon Schuster's previous takes about Ukraine, and have questioned his neutrality. But some of the points reflected in the story are consistent with reports from Western media outlets, such as the dissatisfaction of some in Western governments with the level of corruption in Ukraine. This is not to say that Ukraine's allies are to blame for all the problems Ukraine has experienced on the battlefield, not at all. Their military, financial, political and intelligence support has been invaluable for Ukraine, keeping it in the fight against the Russian army, which has adapted well to the challenges it faced earlier in the war, and still has huge reserves to keep the war going. The Ukrainian army failed to succeed in its counter-offensive in Zaporizhia, and some questions can be asked from the Ukrainian military command about the tactics it employed, and whether defending Bakhmut until the end was prudent due to the losses that the AFU suffered there. The Ukrainian government can be criticized for its inability to solve the issue of corruption that has been hurting this country for decades. But this should not absolve Western countries of blame for not delivering on their pledges, and still having a rather casual peacetime mentality despite facing an obvious strategic threat from the Kremlin.
We need to treat this like an existential World War II level threat as it is, peoples. It's not that hard to freaking do. We need to have a backbone, like even FDR had more of a backbone at the beginning of World War II, for crying out loud.
The and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine by Putin has been going on for more than 20 months. The biggest war in Europe since World War II has turned into a war of attrition yet again. Ukraine will be looking to prevent the Russian army from securing Avdiivka, expanding its operations on the left bank of the Dnipro, ramping up domestic military production, and persuading its allies to give more vital aid. Putin will seek to maintain domestic stability while sending more men and resources to fight his aggressive war of conquest in Ukraine
and
in
then
the
when
long
they're all
term,
dead, you have
and
nothing.
prevail in the war of attrition. In the end, as always, let's look at the visually confirmed losses brought to you by the Oryx blog. As of October 31st, Russia has lost at least 2,438 tanks, 4,975 vehicles, 254 command posts and communication stations, 1,022 artillery systems and vehicles, 300 multiple rocket launchers, 93 aircraft, 132 helicopters, and 317 drones. Ukraine has lost at least 682 tanks, 2,128 vehicles, 18 command posts and communication stations, 424 artillery systems and vehicles, 49 multiple rocket launchers, 77 aircraft, 37 helicopters, and 215 drones. More videos on this topic.
Yeah, guys, these are in terms of material losses during the war, and all these numbers except for... So during this last update, Russia's lost much more of everything except for command posts, which was tied. Oh, and drones. Ukraine lost more drones than Russia, obviously. But all these numbers, Russia has lost significantly more stuff than Ukraine has. Like, Russia's lost 4 times the amount of tanks than Ukraine, for crying out loud. Double their vehicles. Like times 10 command posts. Almost 3 times more artilleries. Like 5-6 times more rocket launchers. Almost 50% more aircraft. Like 4 or 5 times more helicopters. And maybe 50% more drones. Like, it's kind of close in that regard. Like, Russia is losing way more than Ukraine. And they're going to honestly probably suffer more from attrition despite the supposed manpower and industrial capacity. They can't support all this stuff forever. They're not a military or economic superpower like America. We could easily probably outproduce them if we tried. They're trying and they just can't do it. That's why you have to keep giving Ukraine everything they need so they win the war of attrition. How hard is it for you stupid leftists to understand?
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And yes, that includes Australia, more Bushmasters.
Oh my God. Maybe it is need to play Hoi 4 more. You can see the pain of attritional warfare, because I've had to deal with it too. It's not fun to deal with.
Are on the way,
gosh.
so make sure you are subscribed and press the bell button.
So yeah, what do you have to say about this video?
Very interesting.
So yeah, it's Russia's done their offensive in the Luhansk area, and it's going really badly for them. I think a few weeks ago, I saw a report that they had like 3,000 casualties in the first week of the offensive. That's huge. And that's a month ago almost. I can only imagine. It sounds like it's probably even more bloodier than Bakhmut, like I said earlier. Like, Russia cannot keep doing this. Like, they're losing like I think it was like 2 to 3 times more troops than Ukraine is for every one they kill. Like, you can't. Like, and also that's almost the population difference between Ukraine and Russia. Like, Russia's like, I think like 3 times or more of Ukraine's population. So if that's the case, that's like equaling out almost. Like, it's just unsustainable. And of course, since you're on the offensive, the more troops Putler keeps putting in, the more it's going to look bad for not only Russia economically, like, not militarily and economically, like, after the war, but it's going to look bad on him and make him look like a more loser and more like an unstable leader who could potentially be, gotten rid of. That's why you must support the Russo-Ukraine war. Maybe we should do that for next episode. Maybe we should make a whole topic about this, going after stupid leftists and other idiots that don't seem to understand why this is an existential threat. There must be one! And all
honestly, dedicate an entire fucking... I think considering the number of stupid takes there is, we may have to dedicate an entire episode to it.
I don't really want to watch an hour of Hassan and other idiots making stupid comments.
Yep.
Maybe we could see about that. Maybe we should do like we did... remember like right the week before the Russo-Ukraine war, we did that special like video on Kyle's takes and whatever. Just like we need to still do one on the PragerU stuff. Maybe we could do one based upon this. Oh boy, maybe like in between the week and all that. Or sometime in the future. Because this needs to be done. Because I'm tired of dealing with these idiots that don't seem to understand the situation that's going on right now, and don't understand the consequences if Russia did somehow win this in the end. I'm tired of these fucking idiots. All right, guys.
Give it a couple of weeks, because my brother's I'm actually going to California for almost 3 months.
And of course, next. Oh, that's right. I wouldn't be able to do next week anyway, because the NFL's having the first Black Friday game, and of course next week I gotta do 3 MTWS events in a week. I'm not looking forward to that. So yeah, maybe sometime in December we'll consider doing this, because this needs to be talked about, peoples. Because too many dumb leftists don't understand the consequences of this, and then they have to have it like beaten into their heads. But of course, we know people like Hassan are never gonna get for his thick head.
Nope.
He is too stubborn. All right, guys.
But as I said, remember that that I'm going to have much more access to the Rumpus Room since my brother's going to be overseas, so we will be able to do something then.
All right, guys. So that will wrap up this episode here. See you guys next time for episode 90, and hopefully the special videos soon on Mock and PragerU and this Russo-Ukraine war stuff.
Yep. See you guys then.